Hello and welcome to the 12th. Can you imagine? I've run out of fingers and soon I'll be running out of toes. It's the 12th edition of our coronavirus lockdown special, and thank you very much for being with us today. Now, one of the first things that I've noticed in the news today here in the UK is that it's been nice weather and people have been out and about in the sunshine. I cannot imagine for the life of me why. And this does seem to sort of suggest that perhaps more severe measures will be on the way if we just can't. I mean, look, we've all got, well, we haven't all got gardens, but we've got gardens or perhaps balconies, and we realise it's serious stuff that we're facing at the moment, and so that's not a good thing, is it? Really,
It's definitely not a good thing. Yeah. However tempted I was today to go out, even to the corner shop to buy stuff or anything like that. I had to stop myself, and I decided to cook something delicious instead, and being indoors, of course. We opened our windows and got the fresh air, but we stayed indoors as part of our good deed for humanity.
Of course, it sort of seems to depend on which news outlet you look at as to the severity of the transgressions of this stay-at-home thing, and I have noticed here that the BBC says that the sunny weather lockdown was being observed, and actually they show some people in the park all lying down 2 meters apart. Hello, Nick, and hello, Marcin. Hope things are good with you today, and hope Hastings is quiet today, Nick. Let us know whether people have been behaving themselves or not, and a very good evening to you, Alex. So yeah, it depends on how much of a sort of red top you read in terms of your news outlets, because the BBC shows a lot of pictures of people behaving, keeping a safe distance, exercising very prudently. There's a picture in Bournemouth of everybody looking as though they're about 10 metres apart, which is absolutely fantastic. Needless to say, the Sun newspaper tells the other side of the story and shows a whole bunch of people cycling in fairly close proximity. But I think on the whole that people are being sensible on this one. A very good evening to you, Rick, and hello, Jeffrey. How are things on the other side of the big pond today? And a very good evening to you, Tim. So I think the overall picture is that people here in the UK are observing these restrictions and kind of staying at home, which I think is a fantastic thing. Now, that organ of press responsibility, the Daily Mirror, reports about people doing gardening. Because you think, that would be a fairly safe bet in these times, to just get a hoe and a shovel and a bag of compost and sort of potter around in the garden. But there's an article in today's Daily Mirror suggesting that perhaps we shouldn't be doing gardening, which is perhaps a bit over the top. A very good evening to you, Samantha, and hello, Wendy. Hello, Ian, as well. Basically, this is a doctor speaking, and they suggest that it's a story that was originally in the Daily Telegraph, which the Daily Mirror are reporting on. They're basically suggesting that if we're in the garden doing stuff, we might hurt ourselves. We might go to sort of lop the roses and cut our finger or something. I think it's a bit of a tenuous one, and it's certainly much less injurious than if we were to sort of walk along the beachfront or along the seafront in close proximity to our neighbours. So I'm not so sure about that one. I think that's one that that's perhaps some advice we won't take too much to heart.
I think DIY is a bit more dangerous than doing the garden. Gardening is quite relaxing, as a matter of fact. There's a lot of I find it very relaxing doing gardening and just doing a bit pottering around.
Yes, so DIY related incidents cost the NHS on average more than £220 million a year. So obviously there are some hospitals who've actually shut the door on A&E and that kind of thing. So maybe I don't have to put up any shelves for the next little while. Hey, so that's my excuse. I will kind of stick to that one, I guess.
We have Alex Stewart saying hi, David.
Oh, hello, Alex. We're good. Alex is enjoying enjoying their lives, which is very gratifying. We'll keep it going. I'll tell you a little secret. I had a nap this evening, a rather unscheduled one. I closed my eyes at 6 o'clock. I woke up, it was 7:15, which is why we were a bit late coming on today. But I think it's important to kind of, chill and not take these things, too seriously, because the old saying, laughter is the best medicine, has its kind of roots in science, actually, because of all the endorphins and other things that our bodies produce to keep us fit and well. And I think I might have said this the other day, but our brain and our kind of state of mind and everything is good, and if we're happy and positive and this kind of things, we tend to forget that in the background the brain is doing all this housework, and it's remembering to tell the heart to beat every how often it does, and all that sort of thing, and so on an unconscious level our brains are keeping our bodies sort of ticking over very nicely. So if the brain's all disturbed and mixed up and stuff, it might get into a tiz, and your finger might start twitching instead of your heart beating, and we wouldn't want that.
Oh, no.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not in any sort of way, shape, or form. And apparently, sort of married people and people with long-term partners and that kind of thing live a little bit longer, according to statistics.
That's a fact.
So happily married people, that is not the ones, and that's such as ourselves, and that is a wonderful, positive thing. Isn't it?
You have someone to put the blame on, if you know what I mean. Are you sure about the falling asleep wasn't an excuse not to do the wash-up?
Well, I couldn't. I couldn't say, but it pass. No comment.
There I was, keeping it quiet.
So we've been watching some comedy shows and light-hearted stuff. We don't normally watch a lot of telly and all that kind of stuff, but since we started doing this, we're kind of not counting the times we're doing this. We're watching more than ever. I didn't know until yesterday that on BBC iPlayer they have movies.
Well, neither did I, and you managed to find a very good one.
We found a fantastic one yesterday. So for when this finishes, not now. For when this finishes, we found this kind of rom-com thing, which was called Man Up, and one of the supporting cast was Rory Kinnear, who is the son of the late great British comedian Roy Kinnear, well, it's about I won't spoil it for you, but it's about a lady who's passing through Waterloo Station, and by mistake, hello Russ, thank you for joining us this evening. We're just talking about a movie we watched yesterday. By mistake, this lady ends up in a blind date with some fellow who thinks that she is his blind date, just because she happens to be carrying a particular book and standing under a clock in Waterloo Station, and sort of she goes along with this. It's got lovely build up to the sort of climactic bit at the end, which I won't spoil for you, but Man Up, BBC iPlayer. Watch it later today and have a. We've been feeling good all day because of that.
Oh yes, it makes you realise that life is wonderful sometimes.
It absolutely certainly
if you
is.
take the opportunity, that is.
And people have been posting poems and all sorts of things on Facebook as well, which is ever so nice. I'll read you one that was sent my way today, which I picked up on, if I can find it amongst all the stuff. Those social media feeds don't half build up quickly, and if you don't spot something in 10 minutes, it's gone. So do you want to read this, or shall I read this?
You read this.
This is this came to me via my friend Judith, and it's written by a fellow called Brian Bilston, and it's called Remembrance of Things Past Her. This is terrific. She blew her fusilli, my pretty penne, when she found me watching daytime tagliatelle. Je ne spaghetti rien, I responded in song, but she did not linguini for long. Just walked out without further retort, a hard lesson to be tortellini. Orzo, I thought, and so here I am on my macaroni, and now my days feel cannelloni. I just think that's lovely, and it's so nice to sort of see things like this, to see us all, everybody's keeping everybody happy at this sort of rather interesting time, and we've had more people coming for tea in our living room here than probably in the last 12 months combined, so thank you so much for joining us on this little occasion. A very good evening to Kourosh, to Michael and to Ross. Thank you for being with us for this evening's dose of silliness, or whatever it is we're doing these days. What are your thoughts on today, Emma? Have you got anything, any big takeaways on? Well, from midnight until now.
Well, the takeaways that I had today is that okay, I love cooking, and but today particularly, I never ever got to cook my own curry, and today I follow a recipe from one of my friends in the network, Imtiaz, and she loves cooking, and she posts these delicious photographs. So I managed to cook a delicious chicken and spinach curry masala. I will put on the feed later on the link. It was delicious, and very simple to make. Debbie and I usually go out for to dine and wine, and but this time we just staying home. So we kind of finding delicious recipes from our friends and other ones from books. Yes.
And like halfway through our supper today, which was a beautiful dish from Pakistan, we decided that it was actually better than our local restaurant. So that's the thing. These guys have got to up their. I think some people will have to up their game once this lockdown is over, because given the choice again, because it's a bonding activity, also in the kitchen doing the old stuff in the saucepan and things, and I do the heavy lifting, so the chopping up of things and all the fiddly bits, and then Irma does the clever stuff with the spices and the little ingredients that actually make it flavoursome. So that's good kind of teamwork. But the boring stuff it can be outsourced to me. Hello, Colin. Very nice to hear from you this evening. How's life in lockdown? Because we're less than a fortnight into it really now, and it's going to go on a little bit longer. So we're all keeping our spirits up, and doing the best we can, and trying to pack more things into the fridge more creatively.
Yes, that's right. I think it's a way of, it's a time for being creative and being original, and just finding the purpose of staying indoors most of the time, and all of the time, and being creative with the family, enjoy the family, have a delicious meal. If you happen to be alone, be creative.
Yeah. So
write that book.
Absolutely. So POTUS, that guy with the ginger hair that looks like a raccoon on his head, has been a bit naughty, because there were some ventilators, some respiratory masks going to Berlin that he stopped. And he diverted them back to the US, and there were some that were going to Canada that he stopped and diverted back, and kind of, that's a bit naughty. And he forgot that after 9/11 there was a Canadian town that hosted hundreds and hundreds of stranded US citizens, and sort of made them a nice makeshift area, and made them feel very welcome. So it's at times like this that we need to remember gestures like that. Hello, Kevin, how are you this evening? Welcome to our little thing. Do you think I can do another poem?
Yes, you can.
Right,
yes.
this one was posted
on
on social media today from my friend Helen, and who lives locally to us, and I think this is rather nice as well. Obviously, I'm only reading out things from social media that people have made public, not the sort of friends-only ones, because that would be infringing them. So Helen writes as follows: I'll take my personal space invaded. I'll take the long commute again. I'll take a stranger's morning greeting while I'm rushing for the train. I'll take the queue at the job centre. I'll take hoping things will change, and a kid screams their objections while mum waits to hear her name. I'll take shopping for an outfit. I'll take the communal mirror's shame, and as I stare at my reflection, convinced that chocolate's to blame, I'll take the morning swim at the Lido and a lunchtime coffee chat. I'll take the sea of people on the streets. I'll take all that. I'll take the old man with halitosis who has so much to say, because I never for one moment thought these things would go away. Isn't that nice?
It is beautiful. It is beautiful. And it's the times like these in which whatever we like doing, in case poems, books is our thing. And those things, I don't know why, in one of our last outings that David and I did, we love books, and he bought this book, How to Stay Alive by Bear Grylls.
Wow.
Nothing to do with coronavirus.
It was nothing to do, this was about a month ago, so we didn't, it was the last thing on our mind, but it kind of tells you how to, let's pick some things at random.
How to survive a volcanic eruption.
Well, you never know. You never know. We haven't had many of them in Cambridge, but,
And then, how to survive a sandstorm.
That's quite likely.
How to parachute in an emergency.
Well, I often wonder, when I'm having an emergency, how to use it's the pull the ripcord is the thing, I think, and
how to carry out basic motor maintenance.
Yeah, Yeah.
but nothing in how to stay indoors
Well, that will
because
be
of the virus.
in the updated second edition, I guess.
Well, you want to speak to him because that is in much need at the moment.
People have Chris Hadfield, the astronaut, got about 1 million views of his video that he made about how he stays sane on the space station by playing covers of David Bowie songs whilst weightless and trying to stop the guitar floating away and all that kind of stuff, which is very gratifying. So what's the one of the things we try and highlight every day in these regular things is all the sort of feel good stuff, and the BBC just ran a story asking where will be the last place on earth to catch COVID-19, because in the Spanish flu outbreak of 1918, it got to just about everywhere. It got to Pacific Islands, isolated them in the middle of nowhere. It got to Antarctica and all sorts. And I've got this good friend Ferry, who is a radio fella from the Netherlands, who used to broadcast, has broadcast up until very recently, and has now gone to retire on the island of Bonaire, which is, I believe, somewhere in the Atlantic, and so far so good. Touch wood, they're doing all right there. But good evening, Renee. Thank you for joining us. So we're just asking, or the BBC was asking, the last place on earth that will get this COVID-19, because at the time of them writing this, which was today, there were only 18 countries without COVID-19, many of which I've never heard of, actually. North Korea I've heard of, but we're not sure whether they're fibbing or not. But Comoros, I don't know. I'm not good at geography. Kiribati, I do not know. Lesotho, I believe, is on the African subcontinent. The Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Nauru, and so on. So these are kind of some fairly exotic places now that remain free of this current pandemic, and some of the remote islands are taking this very, very seriously and checking people in and out and quarantining them and all that sort of thing, as are some of the sort of really big nations. And so our thoughts go out to them, and we really hope that they're going to lick this one and keep it under control. So and some more sort of good news stories. There are quite a lot of them, really, and you wouldn't, if you're watching the daily news on the telly, or if you're reading the main kind of newspapers, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know, because I think big headlines of doom and gloom in 12-foot high letters probably sell more newspapers than they have done in the past. But I think there's a definite opportunity to tell people great stories now, because you would be providing an alternative.
For example, the BBC News in the world news, and they are also there's plenty of stuff to do out there. How to see the world without leaving your home link, and you can get to see elephants in South Africa and live stream, and you can see the Times Square, Lapland, a Thai beach. Who would love to be in a beach at the moment? Everybody.
And you could do that all in the space of an afternoon, I guess.
Yeah, even the Northern Lights,
Wow.
Venice.
Oh,
Venice,
wow.
apparently very great pictures and feed from Venice, live, seeing all the Mother Nature going back to where it should be. And gorillas in Africa, Tokyo. There's plenty of stuff to do out there if you want to continue viewing the world from your home.
Yeah, I'm a great armchair traveller, because carrying the old suitcases on your head, and in 45-degree temperatures and everything, is not quite the same as sitting on the sofa and flipping between Times Square and the Northern Lights, all in the space of 10 minutes, which was never able to be done before, really.
No, that's right.
And in centuries gone by, it was only the kind of super rich who could do all the sort of big amounts of travelling, wasn't it, really? And a lot of people would stay in their own country, maybe go to the seaside or that kind of thing, even as recently as like Victorian times.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was the sort of mass popularity of air travel that let us do all sorts of things. A number of chefs and restaurants apparently offering free cooking classes to give people at home some food inspiration, which is very nice. Even so, Jamie Oliver's been hosting a show, and Wagamama is hosting a weekly walk from home lessons.
That's delicious food.
It
Wagamama.
certainly is.
I love it.
So and it's nice. It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
And some more very encouraging stories of people recovering from this virus. There's a fella in Oregon, USA, a World War II veteran called William Lapishi, who's celebrated his 104th birthday this week after recovering from this virus. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all doom and gloom, and we're hearing of more and more people who have survived this, which is absolutely wonderful news. A 102-year-old woman in Genoa in Italy has made a recovery, and in Iran, a 103-year-old is completely better now, which is absolutely fantastic. And Dolly Parton's doing her bit. She's giving $1 million to Vanderbilt University in Tennessee, who are looking for a potential cure to this thing, which will finally release us to be walking around the streets of Cambridge in the evening rather than doing this. But it's not going to happen next week, so don't worry. We'll be here tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you got something from that little book of yours?
Oh well, yes, I it's just a little read from Pam Brown. It says, "We all grow up at last and lose that first sharp vision of the world. We miss dew sparkle, leaf shadow, spider scuttle, puddle shine. We waste time on worry, and we find the days swept by, each blur, each like the other. So now is the opportunity to treasure those valuable time with our family, making the most of it. Hopefully Mother Earth will get back to normal one day."
Now, there's a fellow called Reginald Dwight who had some friends round and streamed that. Do you know what Reg Dwight's other name is?
Yeah.
Elton John. So, I mean, you can see why he made the name change, can't you? But he hosted a live concert from his living room, which was, first of all, to entertain the likes of us and also to raise money for charity. And people like Billie Eilish, Alicia Keys was there, Lady Gaga, Maria Carey, and more. And they streamed that live on television and on YouTube. And nobody caught anything because they were all sitting at home, which was absolutely fantastic news. And it's wonderful, really, to see sort of people pulling together in hard times, to see the planet for once cooperating as a whole, to see everybody pulling together, doing their bit and making things work, which I think is a absolutely wonderful thing, and fabulous thing to see. Now we haven't done many of the things on our little sort of whiteboards and notepads and things like that. Have we got anything pressing that we could share on there, do you think?
Right, basically, I just, I've always wondered, why do you find 5 steps to do this, my 5, this, that, and the other, my 10 steps or whatever. So I thought, well, it makes sense. It's kind of give you some kind of certainty to have step-by-step stuff in terms of how to address your life and in your own terms.
Very much so.
So in terms of what I came today on is that this is my 5 steps to happiness.
Okay, can you show us the thing it's written on? It's like a great big, isn't it? That's wonderful. I love that. That's the ultimate sort of. That's the iPad 11 or something. It's the very latest in tech.
Yeah, well, it's just my thoughts. So okay, I need to be realistic. We are in deep trouble as a humanity, as humans, and I am in charge of my own happiness. So I tend to look for the positive things in everything. Now, being positive doesn't mean that I am crazy positive. It's just that I like to address my life in those terms, in which I am responsible of my own happiness. Number 2, look out for what makes me smile and surround myself by it. I do. And the 3rd, create good habits. I'm really trying my hardest. In this case, exercise. That's one thing. I need to continue that. Exercise, you will be tired, but oh boy, what a feeling. And I know that. And the 5th is smile and wave to the dark thoughts. Acknowledge them, make them run to cover somewhere else.
That's fabulous. Now, can I drill down on some of these? Number 2, look out for what makes you smile. So what does make you smile in times like this, do you think?
I don't know. It will be great if someone could say, but in my case, what makes me smile? Anything. To be honest, it's just a matter of a state of mind. anything, from the cup of tea, from whoever picked up the herbs to make the tea, whoever brought them into the country, to the shop, or made the packaging, everything, anything. If you start being appreciative of the things, technology, all this way of communicating with the people that we love the most, and for the people that we love the most that we can't see for whatever reason, just send them good thoughts and good energy. So everything, anything can make me happy and brings a smile to my face.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Good evening, Nick, and good evening, Christine. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we're talking about all the good stuff that's going all around all around us that we might otherwise have missed, but we're not going to allow ourselves to. We're going to be moving ever forward, ever positively, and onwards and upwards and so forth. So I think last night we were talking about how Formula One are making some breathing aids for the NHS, which is quite fantastic, and how a lot of companies have got involved there. And Germany has been taking in some patients with this virus from neighbouring countries to offer them emergency beds, so that they have, because Germany's been pretty strict with this. They've been testing a lot of people. They've been quite rigorous. And in Germany, when the government says stay at home, you stay at home, or you'll probably get arrested or something, or a parking ticket affixed to your bottom, or some such. So they have spare hospital capacity, and extremely generously they're offering it to their neighbours in Italy and France, who are kind of a little stretched at the moment. I think that's wonderful news, and we need to support each other, don't we?
Yeah,
At times like
yeah.
this, we can't stress that enough. Oh, good evening, Grzegorz. Hope things are good with you and with Anna and the kids. We're just sort of raising people's spirits during this time of lockdown, and China is slowly getting back to normal, starting in Wuhan, the place where all this thing started. There have been sightings today of people walking around, albeit wearing masks, but a city which had been totally frozen, like a ghost city, slowly coming back into service, and apparently the Great Wall of China is back open for tourists, who I'm sure will be maintaining a respectable distance from one another. But I believe I'm right in saying that the Great Wall of China is the only thing that you can see with the naked eye from space.
Yep, yeah. According to
So
the
you know,
records.
and the only
I've never been
man-made
to
thing.
space, but I think that's correct.
The only man-made thing. You've never been to space. You haven't lived, have you? Whoa. I was reading a piece today about what's called the Gemini 13, which was a privately funded initiative in the early 1960s, when the space race was just starting, to see how ladies would fare in space. And apparently the girls did better than the boys in terms of pulmonary activity and robustness and so forth. But the boys are the ones that ended up going, because a decision was made to only let people who were flying jet planes to train to be astronauts at the end of the day. And although it had been quite helpful for women to help out with flying during the Second World War, when that came to an end, the men kind of rather chauvinistically pushed them out of the way again, which was kind of naughty, really. So it could have been the first woman on the moon, if things had panned out a bit differently. But I think that's very interesting, because, man flu's a thing where boys, apparently, well, I would say this as a boy, that we actually suffer more, but you would say that we make more of a fuss about it, but vive la différence. Good evening, Surinder. Good evening, Anita. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday evening. A bride and a groom have donated, this is according to Elle, their 400 wedding meals to hospital staff after their reception was cancelled. What an incredibly moving gesture. That is so wonderful. And everybody is stepping forward to do their bit. And it's very heartwarming to hear about these kinds of things. So that happened in East Yorkshire, and all their catering went to 400 hospital workers in Hull, and all they had was the obligatory 2 witnesses. So kind of hopefully these guys will be able to celebrate much more in style, in a traditional style, once these current restrictions are lifted and things return to normal, which they will. Good evening, Kim. Thank you for joining us this evening. For me, it feels like a million years that we've been here, and we've got into our sort of routines at home, which very much sort of mirror what we were doing before without the going out parts.
Yeah.
So, I think we've kind of settled into a stable kind of thing now. We know what we're doing, and we live our day in a sort of routine, with the added bit in the evening that when I don't nod off in the old armchair, we're able to do these little things and to share with you some of what's going on. Hello, Paul. Sorry we were a little bit later this evening, but I nodded off in the armchair. I'll be honest with you, which at my advancing years, this happens with increasing frequency.
That was excuse not to do the wash up, but I insist. No, he did. Right, yeah, so it is amazing how everybody as a race are coming together in terms of solidarity and helping each other in however little or big way we can, according to what we can. It's not the first time that we've experienced pandemics. It's not the last time either. There is plenty more to come. But it's part of how things are evolving and developing. We are lots of us, and we have done some kind of damage through our footprints, etc., etc. So now is the time to really reflect as to what we need to keep and we need to ditch. Definitely, commerce, everything is going to change. I don't know what we predict in terms of lifestyle, but ours is definitely going to be changed. We are very young and early in our relationship. However, this time of being indoors and having to in every single thing, we used to commute quite a lot in terms of work and meeting people as part of what we do for living. But now it has been an opportunity for us to understand each other more so in a very deep level. And I assume everybody at home is doing exactly the same thing. It's the opportunity you're taking to really understand your family, understand the synergy amongst all the members of your family, your children, yourself. I know it's going to be difficult. Nothing is easy. Otherwise, everybody would do it. So it is the opportunity for you to really give your best and really form your life going forward.
A very good evening to Paul Chandler, who's just joined us. We're looking at the sort of good news stories that are going on. We're trying to raise spirits, like singing in the Anderson shelters during the Blitz. I was a bit young for that one, but this is sort of the equivalent of, I suppose, the 21st century equivalent of that, to raise our spirits at this time. I was reading online that the three Cambridge children joined in the applause for the NHS, which we were doing on a Thursday evening, and I thought, who are the three Cambridge children? And I was puzzling over that for about a quarter of an hour, and then I realised, of course, that's Prince George and his compadres from the royal family. So silly me, it's kind of obvious, but living in Cambridge, it's just something that sort of you perhaps forget. A lot of people have been pulling together to make the best of the situation, and it ain't rocket science. In the past, we shared a little video this morning on social media, which we translated because it came to us in Spanish, and so we created an English version of this with our own little subtitles, which was talking about kind of incidents in recent history and some a bit further back, where people have been isolated out of necessity. For example, there was a city that was where I think the Spanish were laying siege to it. Is
Yes,
that right?
in Colombia, in Cartagena.
And the inhabitants sort of held out, and it was about kind of the things that caused them to have the sort of positive pulling together momentum to keep it going. What kept them going? There were those miners, which I think, was it in Colombia, where they were trapped underground for quite a long time. Those young children who were also trapped for quite a long time. And in these cases, like with the whole world watching, there were the Londoners who, during the aforementioned Blitz,
That really struck me, yeah.
amazing, everybody took shelter in the London Underground, and singing songs and sort of having a little bit of platform to sleep on, which is absolutely wonderful. And apparently, and while we're on to the subject of London Underground, Winston Churchill, so Paul Dickens isn't the only person who sits in the driver's cab and rides along with them, because Paul makes these amazing, I think it's about 200, or was it 2,000 videos of, and actually, so the other Paul would like that, because my first friend Paul sits in the driver's cab and takes DVDs of train journeys, so the Dymchurch and Rye mini railway or something. I think that's one we'll have to add to the collection quite soon. So Winston Churchill used to ride around in the driver's cab on the London Underground, and the train would stop between stations so that he could get out of the cab and go through the secret entrance into his bunker, which I believe is now open in kind of Whitehall, but I don't think we have the experience to arrive in quite that way. But so in sort of type lockdown type in lockdown type conditions and scenarios, it's very nice to see how resourceful that the human race can possibly be.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Now, if you're feeling bored tonight and just want a little bit of fresh air in the back of your garden, apparently Venus is visible tonight, to the naked eye tonight, apparently. Venus is in Pleiades, visible to the naked eye tonight. So
that is fantastic news. Now, my friend Dr. Mike Brooks,
yes,
with whom I made a video, because he's an emergency medicine doctor, and we made a video about coronavirus when it was just a twinkle in people's eye, really. It was just sort of vague news story. It hadn't hit home in this sort of way. And yet that was only about 3 weeks ago. And I just, strolled along to his house, and we sat in his living room having tea and all that kind of thing. And now we're all sort of self-isolating and things. But he's got this amazing telescope, so I'm sure he'll be in the garden now, kind of glued to that. And his telescope is kind of, it masquerades as a garden shed. And then in the style of the children's puppet TV show Thunderbirds, quite literally something that his dad made, that the garden shed slides away on wheels and the top opens up, and then Thunderbird 3 shoots out or something, or rather the telescope. He's got this thing, the Raspberry Pi, this computer that's made and designed here in Cambridge, and he's got one of these working his telescope in the garden, and it tracks as the Earth rotates very slightly. The telescope stays pointing at the same star for these things that require a sort of long exposure. So that was a remarkable thing to see after we made a little quick potted history of coronavirus. And I think it's about time we did an update, actually, to be honest, because things have moved quite a lot since then, and I've got a lot more questions have sprung into my brain that I would like to ask Dr. Mike. So I think I'll message him tomorrow and see if he's up for that. Good evening, Sanjeev. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday evening when we're talking about all the things to be positive about sitting at home today, with or without Netflix or whatever, but just chilling in our own spaces, really.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right.
So, and in terms of this illness itself, some good things to remember. Most people recover, more than 99%, probably about 99.5%, according to the best of the latest estimates that we have, which is pretty good. It's a lot milder for children, and the number of new cases just shriveled away and more or less disappeared where the virus began, because they did the sort of containment procedures that many countries, such as here in the UK, are now putting into practice. So if this thing is highly contagious but everybody's staying at home, that rather knocks it on the head, doesn't it, really?
Common sense tells us that, yeah.
Common sense tells us that if at maximum it can jump 2 meters, it can't jump through a front door, it can't jump through a closed window, it's not going to jump over the garden fence, or onto the balcony. So this is the most remarkable thing, and we saw it in a video. Which probably was somebody's daily routine of them lowering the dog from the second floor balcony onto the streets below, which was just,
talk about becoming creative, eh? Walking the dog. just outside the window.
Yeah, I don't think it
Brilliant.
was here in the UK, but
No.
what a wonderful thing to do. And maybe that could catch on. But obviously, you don't in that kind of situation. You don't put the collar around the dog's neck and lower it on that. This dog was kind of strapped around its belly, and the dog seemed to be quite enjoying it. It's quite a little adventure for him. Good evening, Lisa. How nice of you to join us this evening, talking about the happy side of this of this thing. And the other thing I think, as we touched on the other day, is that when there are future pandemics, and future pandemics may be a lot worse than this one, there is no way that this is some kind of tinfoil hat brigade plot to undermine us, or some sort of secret thing cooked up either in a government or a terrorist laboratory, because it ain't dangerous enough. This one is just a natural thing from chicken droppings and bats and all that kind of stuff. The very thought of it. But and we were pretty unprepared for this, and we've come together quickly to crack it. Countries after SARS and this kind of thing had been reducing their investment in infrastructure, in preparing for these kind of outbreaks. The next one that comes along may be bloody awful, but if we keep the funding going, if we keep the research going, if we keep the preparedness going that we're doing now, all pulling together right across the globe, then whatever nature throws at us next time around, and it has been said, quite rightly so, that nature is the top bioterrorist, because nature's always sort of working away, and nature's had billions of years of practice to create lurgies and such things, then we will be ready, and we'll all stand together, and I think that would be wonderful.
Yes, that's right. So all we have to do is just learn from this experience, learn everything that we can, even in our own households, and throw what we don't need and keep what we need. It's just a matter of being basic again, going back to zero, and reset. Now we have the opportunity. Yes, it's a tough ride ahead. Yes, we're gonna lose many people along the way. But it's part of this pandemic. So if the little things that we can do is to stay indoors, let's just do it. Let's just stay indoors, for goodness sake.
Now, one person or character who wasn't able to stay indoors, and hello Eileen, this is a tweet that itv.com picked up on, which we've come across here. There's a Dalek patrolling an empty street, and probably he's going to exterminate anybody that he finds. It's a black Dalek. I think there's a sort of hierarchy of Dalekness, and I think the black ones are quite near the top of that thing, and because most of them are just sort of grey and pretty boring. So that's a wonderful thing to see during a pandemic, going down the middle of the street in some kind of hilly place, but we're not quite sure where it is. But 19,500 people liked it. So yeah, and I would have been one of them really, because it's been a long time since I've come face to face with any sort of exterminator in my time, other than the guy who deals with rats.
Oh gosh.
Well, yeah. Let's and the less said about that, the better. Except to say that Steve Coogan had a wonderful show about 15 years ago called Saxondale, about this guy who's really mixed up in his head, and a sort of like an Alan Partridge pest exterminator, if you like. It's very funny. I'm sure it's available, because I mean I got it on DVD, but nowadays everything's available online, isn't it? So look out for Steve Coogan's Saxondale, which is very funny, much funnier than we could ever be, even if we sort of scripted this and rehearsed it, which we don't. We just kind of come along about 5 minutes before switching the thing on and say, oh my god, what are we going to talk about today? And I go, I don't know, let's just switch it on and go, and that's sort of what we do. So we're keeping
us sane, so we are very grateful that you're watching and keeping us sane.
We are. And one day in the future, yeah, we'll keep all these, and we hope that our grandchildren will be watching them one day, and our great-grandchildren. So hello kids, we're not around to tell you off anymore, but do the right thing. Do the right thing. That's our message to the future. And I wrote a while ago a chapter in a book which was an Amazon bestseller, and that was a message to, and I was honoured to be invited to do this. It was a message to myself in the past. So since we've done a message to the future, let's do a message to the past. We could do a daily one, because I've got loads of these. They'll last until Christmas at the rate of one a day. So this one is called Take Chances. My father used to say, nothing ventured, nothing gained. He really did say that. And he was right. Never be afraid to take measured risks, because if you live in a comfortable bubble or cocoon, you will never achieve greatness. If you risk nothing, as the saying goes, then you almost certainly risk everything. And for all our sort of complaining and snowflakey whinging and millennial angst, we are in a fairly comfortable world at the moment. We've got the central heating, we've got the lights and the water and the gas and the electricity and all those kind of things, and the telly and the internet and all those sorts of things. So, it's not too bad. Come on. Hello, Alice. Thank you for joining us this evening. You're very welcome to stick around for a bit as we look at the lighter side of being stuck at home during the great COVID thing debacle of 2020, which we'll be telling our children about, and they'll be telling their children, and so on. It'll be sort of folklore, and as these things in the sort of oral tradition get twisted and that kind of thing, and I don't know, one fella with a rolled up newspaper suddenly becomes a horde of marauding hooligans or something going down the centre of the street, after the story gets told over and over. I mean, we did this once as an exercise at school. It's quite an interesting one, where we're all sitting around a table and one person looks at a picture, and then he describes it to the person next to him or her. Then they describe it to the next person. They describe it to the next person. And it goes all around this table, which has got 6, 7 people there. And then the last person, number 7, number 8, has to draw it. And then you compare the original picture with the drawn one. And in terms of the drawn one, it's just what they've been described, not first hand, second hand, third hand, fourth hand. And it's often something completely different from the thing that the first person saw. So similarly, in the great tales of folklore and mythology and things that will come out of 2020, I'm sure this thing will be described as the attack of the mutant ninja killer zombies, headlessly walking around the street, sort of impaling kittens on their lances or something kind of weird like that. When actually we're just sitting at home watching Netflix like every Saturday night, But don't tell anyone that that's what we do every Saturday night.
So yes, right. So I think we are going to talk about what's next, David.
We can do a few more feel-good ones, or we can leave them tomorrow. I'll just do the last feel-good one. There's a fella wearing the old blue surgical gloves, and we haven't even got any. That's a great omission, isn't it, really? But he's walking around dropping off school dinners to kids who need them, to kids who would normally get free school dinners. And he's going around door to door with with about 10 rucksacks on, front, back and sides and all this kind of thing, with all these so not Meals on Wheels but Meals on Legs, which is terribly nice. A guy called Zane Powell's, and that again was reported on the ITV news website. A few minutes of this to sort of talk about bettering ourselves, developing better habits, living a better life, and actually leveraging this time that we have spent on our Todd to become better.
Yep, this is a chance.
So when we emerge out of the cocoon, we come out to a better world than the one we left, and we come out as better people. Have you got any thoughts on that?
No, the only thought is that we need to carry on connecting with the people that matter the most, our friends, our tastes and likes, and to really identify what makes you go.
So I've got a couple of things here, because it's all about kind of developing good habits, I guess. And every morning, I think this is a good one, make a list of the 3 most important things that will make the biggest impact today, and then do them. How does that strike you?
Well, it's common sense, really. The first thing is to be grateful, because you have a new day ahead of you. It doesn't matter whatever happened yesterday. Today is a different day. Yesterday is gone. There's nothing you can do about it. All that you can do about it is what you are going to be doing today. Tomorrow is too far ahead. So today, the now, that's what you should focus on.
Yesterday is Gone, actually, is a song. And when we come off this broadcast, I'm going to play it to you. I had that one going through my head this morning, and then I forgot. So it's a terrific song from the 1970s. I can't remember who did it, but it's a very nice kind of, anthemic kind of soul type song, and which I think is absolutely lovely. Oh, and talking about soul, it was very sad to hear about the passing of Bill Withers, who did Ain't No Sunshine, who did Lovely Day, and some wonderful, wonderful songs. As far as we know, his passing was not connected with the current crisis that we're in, but he leaves a lot of fans who will be very, very sad, and his music made a great impression upon me and upon others. There's some extraordinary things being suggested. Drink a green smoothie every morning. Why green? Why green?
Well, interesting. Probably because it's more vitamin C on this, or what is that?
I've no idea. Maybe it means that the green things that we put into our smoothies, what would they be? Avocado would be green. An avocado and cucumber smoothie. How does that sound?
No.
No?
What is yeah, no.
And unripe tomatoes, don't forget.
No.
And the little green things that grow on the top of potato plants, which are actually poisonous.
I
But
know
look
you
like
eat
tomatoes.
everything, but yeah, that's a bit too extreme.
So if you have any smoothie recipes that you'd like to share with us, do put them in the comments, and I'll most definitely read them out today. But certainly we do have healthy breakfast, don't we?
Oh yes, definitely.
And health has become our sort of priority. And our a bit like a war zone, our house now has kind of red zones and orange zones and yellow zones and this kind of thing. And the red zone is right next to the front door, where those, why do they keep sending out pizza leaflets and all that kind of thing when everything's in lockdown? Come on. And when the things drop through the old letterbox, we don't know. Oh, very good evening to you, Crusher. Rock hard, rock heavy, and rock animal. And hope that in metal lockdown land, Crusher's a fabulous fellow. We were together on a station called Total Rock, which I put together with my friend Tony Wilson, and absolutely superb to have Crusher on board with us this evening, and so yeah, we've divided, we've taken our space and made it into a sort of war zone. So basically, red hot, full of landmines and things. Don't coronaviruses look like landmines? They do, because they've got all those little knobbles sticking on the outside. If you step on one, off it goes.
The spikes, yes.
And and when we go out shopping, we plonk it all just behind the front door and all that kind of thing. And then I take it to the kitchen one at a time. And I mean, this is me. I'm the kind of fanatical guy. Ian was quite normal, but and then we put it in the sink, and she washes it with soap, and then it goes in the fridge. And you can't get much more sensible than that. When we do, we walk opposite our house. There's a car park. We walk across the car park to a little supermarket and get our shopping there. And if we see in this deserted car park, normally it's packed full of commuters, but we see someone walking even vaguely towards us, then I sort of pull her off and we go away at an angle to keep about a 10-metre gap between us and everybody else. So welcome to the nutty. You thought the Osborns were a bit nutty, but we take it totally to the next level here. I tell you, I promise you, and I am not kidding.
We Gimosavi. He does.
But you can see we're having a lot of fun here, and there are a lot worse places to be. There are a lot worse times in history to be. If you were in the middle of bubonic plague or something, in the Middle Ages and all that kind of thing, and even if when it wasn't time of plague, the king's tax gatherers would come round and they'd probably chop off a couple of fingers if you didn't have the bag of gold for the king. So we're a bit more civilised than that nowadays. I remember my mum grew up in the 1920s, and she used to go to there was a medieval castle in her village where they used to show the Iron Maiden, and rather like in the film Bill and Ted, but this wasn't Iron Maiden the band, you see. This was the sort of medieval torture implement, which I won't describe because it's she used to say, thank goodness we don't have things like that anymore. And that's another good and positive sentiment, that the only Iron Maiden we have now are the band with Bruce Dickinson, who sing fabulous songs like Fear of the Dark, which is a great song. Listen to that when we get off, and turn the volume up maximally loud. Oh, and a plug for Tuesday nights when I do a 2-hour rock show, and I think we're going to try this week to squeeze this in just before.
Yeah.
We will try to do that, because last week I bottled out and we missed, the only one we've missed of this 12-day lockdown was the one before my radio show, and the radio show also comes from this room, and these guys that I'm at this station with are fantastically techie, and they helped me to set up in about 24 hours a radio station at home, complete with microphone and all that sort of stuff, and mixing desk and so that the old saying, the show must go on, that was a song by Queen, wasn't it? And a very good song too, and I think it was one of Freddie Mercury's last ever performances. So we've made a whole playlist of songs for you to to listen to very loud when we come off the air tonight. We can listen very, very loud now because we haven't got neighbours either side of us, because they're all gone. They've disappeared in the space of a few days without a trace. When the zombie invasion started, they hot-footed it out of here at lightning speed. We have got some builders next door now, and I hope they're self-isolating, although I've seen no evidence of that. I've seen people outside smoking and that kind of thing, and vans backed up and what have you. But on the other side, there's nothing there at all, and they've just got to let signs, which I like to sort of go along in the middle of the night and paint a little eye in between so it makes toilet. But that's me. Okay, 74 years old and
Never for a moment with you.
Never grown up. Hello, Kaz. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's nearly over, but I think you get the chance to rewind it and watch it again, if you could bear to do so. Facebook very kindly allows us to do that. Takes me a little while to put the subtitles on, so they won't be available till the morning. And I'm not going to tell you how I do that, because everybody would be doing it if I don't sit down there with a little notebook. Let's put it that way. And build a feel-good crew, it says, and that's fantastic, and that's something we're doing online. We're increasingly, aren't we, connecting with your friends, with my friends, doing little Facebooks with them, doing little messages and WhatsApps and all that kind of thing. And you can actually see people now thanks to the internet. We can actually, it's not even a dim and distant phone call. I remember in the very early 1980s, some of my friends were from Poland, and Poland was in a state of lockdown. There's martial law, and on our great big chunky televisions that we had back then, all the phone lines were dead, all the flights had been stopped. You could see troops and tanks going around the streets of Poland, and people didn't know whether their loved ones were safe at all. There was no way whatsoever, period, of getting in touch. People who had been due to go home found that there was no way to do so. People had, and not even a phone call. And when there were phone calls, the sensor was listening, and you could hear a click when the sensor was listening to the telephone and everything. This is a terrible kind of lockdown. These guys over here, they could leave their homes, they could walk around, they could go to work, but they would come home every evening, and they must have been worried sick every day with uncertainty as to what was going on with their families while they were here working. So, there's been worse times. There's been better times, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, going out and about, going down the pub even, or going to the theatre, or whatever rocks your boat. And we went to a performance, didn't we, of Sleeping Beauty at a cinema, which was beamed live from Covent Garden with our good friend Anna, and all that kind of stuff. It'll come back again. In the meantime, everything is beamed in from our living room to yours, from yours to ours, and that kind of thing. So and we've got our cups of tea, we've got our croissants and all that kind of thing. It's just we can't sort of hand them across the table.
That's right.
Have we got a sort of final thought for the evening lined up, or would you like me to pull one out of a hat quickly?
You pull one out of the hat quickly.
Okay, so this hat is book shaped, and let's see if we can't find something very inspiring. How about this one? I wrote this. At the end of the day, it is our words and our ideas that survive us. A legacy for future generations, and a helping hand for each and every one of us to reach our goals, our hopes and our aspirations as easily and as effortlessly as possible.
That's beautiful, David. Now, if I may, I'd like to share this one. And it's from Gilda Radnor. And it says, "It is so hard for those little humans beings to accept this deal that we get. It's really crazy, isn't it? We get to live, then we have to die. What we put into every moment, it's all we have. So this is your opportunity to reflect. This is your opportunity to continue, to give yourself to your families, to yourself, and to start again and press reset."
That's a wonderful, wonderful sentiment, and for once I'm all out of words. Thank you so much for your company tonight. It's been absolutely wonderful to have you sharing a little glimpse of our life in our living room. We will be back tomorrow, hopefully a little bit earlier than today if I don't nod off. So in the meantime, stay safe, stay well. Thank you so much for being with us, and we look forward to joining you again tomorrow at roughly the same time. Bye-bye now.